Hello, fellow travelers. Welcome to Fate's Wide Wheel. I am your host, Sam Fain. And this week has been a little odd compared to the last few weeks of sort of constant content. As you can probably tell, I have been dealing with a virus. I went to the doctor. It's not COVID. It's not, flu or anything like that. But as the medical professional reminded me, there's a lot more out there than just the big ones, and doesn't mean they're any less nasty. So it's been a tough week. It's been, tech week, dress rehearsals, previews for the show. We finally opened as well. So it's been busy amidst all the other regular life stuff. So that's one of the reasons why there hasn't been much. There've been a couple of things scheduled that didn't end up really kind of taking the form that I thought they would, but were no less beneficial and wonderful and amazing. Had some great conversations with some folks involved with the show. Sounds like things are really exciting, and people are very excited for these last 5 episodes. I can't really say much more than that, partly because I don't know much more than that, and I'm grateful for that. This is one of those situations where it's like I'm glad that I don't know much, because I think that we're in for some incredibly emotional storytelling over these last 5 episodes, and I think everyone's going to have a chance to do some really cool stuff. Some things that I do know, some things that I have been able to glean, that I will share. That's pretty much out there on social media in one form or another. Obviously, filming started again on Monday, November the 27th. Some of the folks that were called on that particular day included Ray and Caitlin and Mason. We can pretty much verify that just based off of like Instagram posts and such. Narissa was not called on that day, but it does look like she was called on Tuesday. Mason is pulling double duty. They are also filming Sandman Season 2 pretty much at the same time that they are filming Quantum Leap Season 2, which is exciting and amazing and wonderful and incredible. And I'm so pleased for them. There's so much going on. And if you followed any of their social media recently, you can kind of see that since closing their run in Cabaret, they've been sort of doing some vacationing and just kind of soaking in a lot of cool stuff. Did a convention appearance, I believe, in Denver, I want to say, this past week. And yeah, just lots of really cool stuff for Mason recently, which is awesome. It's so great to be able to see like Ray, and Caitlin and everyone really posting more on social media, talking a little bit about the show, sharing things about the show. Eliza has been doing the same thing. I believe Eliza was also called. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that she will be in episode 209. Could be that they were filming something else. The Leap Out, who knows? It could also mean that maybe she is in 209. So, something certainly to keep an eye out for. I'm certainly kind of in the midst of trying to schedule some more stuff, some more interviews. It's been difficult, due to the holiday. I certainly haven't wanted to pester too many people, just with the nature of getting filming started and everyone being so busy. So I've been very, I'll just admit it fully to you listeners and viewers. I have been very gentle, I guess, so would be the word that I'm going to use, about approaching people right now for interviews and stuff. Obviously, there's been a lot of great stuff the past couple of weeks. And certainly I hope to have more. I know for 208, there's something in the works that I think people are really going to enjoy. I had an actor interview scheduled. Again, it kind of became something else. So it's not something that I'm going to, be able to share, but hopefully we'll get something rescheduled and do that again. But there's been, there's obviously there's been momentum, there's been movement. There just necessarily hasn't been anything that I've been able to confirm yet. So I don't necessarily know that I'm going to have anything for 207, a kind of magic. I'm really looking forward to audience reaction for the episodes from December 6th and December 13th. We've got a kind of magic, which is the witch trial episode on December 6th, again, episode 207, a kind of magic. And then for 208, Nomad, that's the big Egypt episode, coming on December 13th. They're both fantastic, and they both have a lot going on in very different ways. I think that something that this season has really truly nailed in a way that the first season I don't think was ever able to completely embrace, just due to the nature of the ongoing storyline and the mystery at the project and in present day, is the way that this show can be such a vehicle to tell different kinds of stories week to week to week, and then they can genuinely really make that mini movie week after week. Certainly that's not to say they didn't do a lot of genre hopping and do some interesting and fun stuff in the first season, and everybody knows I love the first season, but this season has just been so much stronger, and they've been able to embrace that form of storytelling and really put their own stamp on it in a way that they were starting to do at points kind of in the back half of the season in particular. But this season has been such just a leap forward, no pun intended. So I think these last couple of episodes really helped to be emblematic of that, and I think people are really going to enjoy them. I know that I did. I've seen some bits and pieces here and there, some other behind the scenes stuff from these two episodes. I will just say for a second, I don't normally say stuff like this. Maybe it's because I'm not feeling great. Maybe it's because I'm just feeling angsty in general. I've seen some posts out there from some of the larger media outlets, and it's unfortunate that they seem to have such tunnel vision and are focused so much on the clickbait, because no one, regardless of what they title their article, has spoiled anything for these episodes. No one has really been able to dig very deep into some of the stuff that's been going on behind some of this stuff, and no one has attributed properly some of the information that they have been putting out there, and certainly have not been paying attention to some of the hard work that I know some people have been doing for the past year and a half, nearly 2 years now, when it comes to this new series. And some of the people, including myself, quite frankly, that have had information long before anyone else had it, and had, quite frankly, had I not shared certain things early on, it never would have hit certain places. So it is what it is, and I'm not going to say anything more, and I hate to be too vague about it, but I just think that it's important to note that, a lot of the stuff that's coming out and that we've seen from some of these outlets, I don't know, the interviews, obviously, with people involved with the show are always great, and I love hearing what they have to say. But I just feel like a lot of the other writing that's occurring about the show right now, while I'm thrilled for the publicity that the show is getting from it, and I'm thrilled that people are talking about it and writing about it and reading about it, some of it's pretty hollow, and that's unfortunate, because the show deserves better. And I would certainly challenge some of these, writers to do better. Quite frankly, not that they're listening or paying attention to this podcast, because if they were, they would have been able to attribute some certain things to them. But that's really neither here nor there. And I'm genuinely not bitter about it. I actually don't care. I just wish that they were, again, doing better by the show, which deserves it. Moving right along, I think that production on these last 5 episodes is going to, kind of come fast and furious. I mean, they're already almost done with 209. 210 will start immediately after that. That is an episode penned by Shakina. There was a casting call that went out for a trans actor to play a role in that episode. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the storytelling in 210. And I've heard through the grapevine that 213, the season finale, is something that they're, the folks working on it are very proud of. So I'm very eager to see where we get to with that finale. It should be very, very cool. As far as podcast news and notes, JJ and I have got something planned that we're very excited about, looking forward to, which will happen post 208 Nomad. We're going to do a special episode then, and have some cool artwork that JJ will have worked on, as well as some behind the scene videos on the Patreon channel. Of course, if you're interested in seeing the behind the scenes videos already assembled for the Doctor Who the Daleks poster, as well as the Secret History poster, you can of course head over to Patreon to get a glimpse of those, and then subscribe for more. This time of year, it's always so hard. We're always looking for places to help out and give back to. And of course, I will always say that the Trevor Project and Doctors Without Borders are two that are very near and dear to my heart. I shared some posts on social media on Giving Tuesday about that. I support them. I donated. It's funny. I had realized that I hadn't donated this year yet, just with everything that's been going on. And so I donated on Giving Tuesday to both of those charities. And they will always continue to be charities that I support and find incredibly important. Of course, that there's places in your community that you can help out and do a little something extra for, whether it's donating time or money. Please do, if you're able to, and if you're in a position where you need help, don't be afraid to ask for it. Don't be afraid to reach out. Whatever kind of help you might need, there's definitely outlets for it that go even beyond friends and family, because as much as we love and appreciate our friends and family and derive so much support from them this time of year in particular, sometimes they can also be a source of frustration and stress and instability. And sometimes we need to look elsewhere to find something to lean on and other people to lean on. And they exist. And there's a lot of places out there that we can go and make phone calls, or walk into a meeting or whatever the case might be in order to get a little help. And I'm certainly grateful for all the people in my life that have been a source of support right now. And in particular for my own personal observer right now, who's been pretty incredible and amazing. And there's a lot of stuff this time of year that comes out. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And if you're in a position to give help, please do. And if after all of that, you still would like to support the podcast, head over to patreon.com/fateswidewheel. You can sign up at any donor level, and you will be given access to the behind the scenes videos, to lots of other behind the scenes content, as well as early release on videos when possible. And there's a lot of other really cool stuff coming in the very near future. In fact, there should be something in your stocking, so to speak, by the time the first half of the season is over. So before Christmas, you should see something extra. So JJ and I will be coming back with some more episodes, sort of to kind of fill in while we wait for Quantum Leap to come back. I have no news on when Quantum Leap will return or on what day and time. It does look like, as other people have mentioned, I know Stacy over at Corman Productions on the Facebook page, she's been very, very good about posting updates and stuff like that. And, with the scheduling that NBC has released, it does look like we might not see Quantum Leap back at the Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time slot, at least not right away. It does look like the Chicago shows are coming back to fill that slot. Now, it could be just based off the way production is running that maybe they do something where, we've got a slew of Chicago episodes for 4 or 5 weeks, then they take a break while they maybe kind of get caught up. Then we get the other 5 Quantum Leap, and then the Chicago shows come back. Maybe that's not how it'll happen at all. Maybe Quantum Leap will move to Tuesdays at 10, which looks like it may be a spot where, where they could fit. Who knows? I really don't have a lot of clarity on that right now. And again, I just haven't asked. It's just, I sometimes in doing something like this, and I see it from other outlets, I think we get a little too eager to have all the information, and we make contact with people. And for me, it's always been important to, see the human being and talk to the human being. And I've developed such an appreciation for who these people are as artists, but also just as humans. And, with this particular show and focusing on this particular thing, I've just been able to have the good fortune to meet and dialogue with a lot of really, really good people. And sometimes I just don't really feel like, sending that message and saying, hey, can you tell me more about this? I'm not a journalist. I don't have to be first with all the facts. I don't have to know everything. And, I know nothing. So, and I'm okay with that. And when I do learn anything, if I do learn anything before it's put out there officially, certainly if I can share it, I will. I do know obviously that the show will of course be coming back. I believe that it'll probably be, I know I can say this. I know that there was initially a desire from the network to have the show back as soon as possible after the new year, just like last year. With the way that things have changed, with the strike resolving, with the schedule being put out the way that it has, it looks as though maybe they're giving it a little more time. I don't know how to feel about that. There's been a lot of momentum from the show. Secret History is one of the highest rated episodes of the series, period. You would hope that that would be able to continue. We'll see what happens with 207 and 208. I think it will. I think there's buzz. I think people are excited. I think the show is definitely opening itself up to a wider audience as the quality, continues to grow, as these storylines continue to deepen, as the accessibility via streaming with Peacock is so readily available. I just think that the show is growing, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And I hope that it continues to do that. And I hope that scheduling decisions don't impede that in any way. And I don't think they were. I'm not going to be all doom and gloom about it. I think that we're absolutely going to be able to see continued growth for the show throughout the rest of season 2 and into, fingers crossed, season 3. We've seen some early renewals for some shows. I think Irrational and Found. Just because Quantum Leap's not on the list, it's no reason to worry at all. That could just have to do with contractual stuff, wanting to get people, Jesse Martin guaranteed for 3 more seasons or whatever the case may be. I'm just making stuff up now. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the desire to have like Quantum Leap back, in the same token that when Quantum Leap got renewed so early last season, it wasn't necessarily like this is the greatest show that we've ever done and we have to renew it as soon as possible. As much as it was obviously a lot of other logistical things that went behind it. So just because we haven't necessarily heard renewal stuff already doesn't mean that it's A, not already in the works, and B, not going to happen. Let's see. What else did I want to mention? Scheduling. Oh, I will say this, that if I had to make a best guess, I'm just kind of going to assume that based off of what we've seen and how far out the scheduling is, that we will probably see QL back on the air by end of January, early February. I could be completely wrong about that, but that's just kind of my guess right now. So I would say last week of January, first week of February. If it's earlier, awesome. But based off of the scheduling stuff that's been put out by NBC thus far, I'm just going to guess that that's probably what we'll get, which is great. It gives them an opportunity to, to shoot these episodes, get this work done. It'll be really interesting to kind of see, what the rest of the process for the end of the season is like, what the, kind of what the tone for not only these episodes, but also just for the work going on behind it is as we kind of go in there. I mean, obviously everyone's very excited and very positive about the work as near as I can tell. Speaking of kind of business stuff and behind the scenes stuff, I don't know how many people are cognizant of this, and it's something that to be completely frank, I don't know all the specifics on, so I'll just say that before I talk too much about it. But as many of you may know, or as many of you may not know, I don't know, the deal that helped to end the strike has not been ratified yet, so there's still a vote waiting to happen on that by SAG-AFTRA, yes or no, as to whether or not they're going to accept this deal. And I've seen a lot of misinformation. I've seen a lot of, for lack of a better word, propaganda. And it's strange to me at this point, some of what I'm seeing, especially from people who are indeed members of SAG-AFTRA, because it seems to me that there seems to be this lack of understanding of exactly what will happen. The gist of what I can say and what I do know is that if there is a no vote on the deal and the deal gets pushed back and does not actually go through, the following things will not happen right away. There will not be a strike right away. People will continue working. They will work under the 2020 deal. They will continue to do that work until a call for a strike occurs. If that strike is approved, they will then go on strike again, and we'll be in the same situation that we were in for the last few months. If that happens, they have to go back to the negotiating table. They do not start with the deal that they currently have. They would have to start from square one and rework a new deal from the ground up. Now, I know that there may be some people out there that say, well, surely they'd be able to basically get what they already wanted, or surely this. No, not surely this. Because at this particular point, if they have to do that, the chance of alienating the producer side of this, the studio side of this rather, is a lot higher, because at that point, the seasons are already going to be ruined. So the idea that they could wait that strike out even longer now and not really, worry as much about it is higher. Yes, there's going to be money lost. Yes, there's going to be, projects canceled, etc. But, as we can already tell, that's not something that folks are too concerned about. We're still hearing the Zaslavs and the Igers make asinine comments in the press about art, which they don't seem to know jack shit about. So it's frustrating to hear sometimes. And as I'm not a member of the union, I certainly can't tell anyone what to do, right? If they feel strongly that this deal should not be ratified, then they should vote no. Absolutely, they should. But I've literally seen and heard conversation between members of the union talking about these things, and not having a true comprehension of what would happen if a no vote went through, or even if a yes vote went through, for that matter. Obviously, if it's yes, the deal's good for another few years, and it gives them a place to work from, a few years from now. So it's an interesting situation, but again, it's also not a situation where if there's a no vote, we don't just go right back to the strike. It would have to be approved again, which means work would continue. It would not necessarily be great, obviously, but it also would not necessarily spell the end of season 2 or the end of some of these shows, but it very well could. I think studios would be a lot more hesitant to renew shows if a no vote went through. So when it comes to television, I think that there would be a lot of shows that were just canceled part and parcel because, why bother? We're not going to be able to even guarantee that we're going to get to work on a season 3. So we might as well just say the heck with it. Time will tell, and I'm no expert, so take what I've said with a grain of salt. Let's see. Personally, it's been a really weird, couple of weeks. Obviously, there's been a lot going on. I was sick, then I was getting better, then everybody else got sick in the house, then I got sick again. I've been in rehearsals for this show. I got a haircut recently. I'm not wearing it in my, kind of slightly out of fashion mid-70s mod style that I have for the show, but as you can tell, it looks a little different than normal. As is the facial hair. The show has been interesting, and maybe one day I'll talk more about it, but it's a show and it's work, and they are gracious enough to pay me for my efforts, so yay. I already started work on the next show, which I'm really looking forward to. It's a fantastic show. It's a newer show. It's called Cry It Out. If you're familiar with the Netflix television program Made, it's written by the creator and writer of that television program. And she's wonderful. The script is really, really a delight in a lot of ways. And to get the chance to work on it, especially considering there's only one male presenting character in the show. And that's, regardless of my gender identity, is certainly where I'm going to be fitted in for the most part, is great. And I love the opportunity to work on a show that revolves so much around parenthood. And in particular, in this script, it is very focused on motherhood and what that means. And the truth be told, especially since the pandemic, I've been able to identify with that aspect, that traditional gender stereotyped aspect of our society and our culture to a great deal, sometimes to my own detriment, where it's difficult for me to read certain articles because it's so focused on mothering, and I feel like, well, I'm a parent too, and I don't fit exactly what you're talking about, but I know what you're talking about because I've experienced that from the standpoint of being a stay-at-home parent, and filling that role in so many ways that like it's talked about. But anyway, so that aspect is great, and I love getting to do the work, and there's more opportunities on the horizon, so I'm sure you'll probably hear little bits and bobbles about that along the way. Everything else is going along all right. The holiday season can be difficult, especially for those that are addicts and suffer from any sort of depression from time to time. But I really am doing all right, and I'm getting a lot of little boosts here and there from some wonderful sources and inspiration. I've found a wealth of inspiration from some pretty amazing and incredible people who I'm lucky to know, and that's made all the difference. It really, really has. And I, again, would encourage anyone who's struggling in any way, whether or not it's with drink or drugs or, any kind of depression or mental health, to ask for help. and realize that sometimes that help does not necessarily come from the people that you think you're closest to. And, you know, as wonderful as friends and family can be, sometimes you need a little help beyond that. And it can be very difficult to ask for it. And I completely understand. And, you know, it's difficult and it's hard, but the resources are absolutely there. And, you know, sometimes the greatest resource you can possibly find just comes from opening up a little bit in here and finding your superpower, which oftentimes starts with vulnerability. And I think that if you are struggling with that in any way, you know, do the hard thing and just open yourself up a little bit, say yes. And I think you might find that there is a wealth of kindness and generosity and help to be offered out there. Sometimes I guess the best thing that I can do, as hollow as it might sound, standing on the other side, sitting on the other side of the screen, as I see you and I hear you, and I feel seen and I feel heard because of you. So thank you so much for that. And I would just encourage you all to take care of yourselves and stay safe out there and treat one another with kindness at all times, but especially this time of year, because it's difficult. It's a difficult time for a lot of folks. You know, when you look across the aisle, when you look across the room, realize that there might be somebody sitting over there struggling in ways that you can't possibly imagine. And maybe they're struggling in the same ways that you are. And if you give them grace, maybe you'll find grace in return. So that's my spiel. I'm going to go drink some tea, listen to some music, read a book. I'll talk about this for a moment. Is it here? No, it's not here. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I've actually been reading a biography of Bruce Lee recently, which has been fascinating to me. You know, growing up as a kid, I think there's a lot of, you know, people that go through this phase where, you know, Bruce Lee is someone who is so iconic. You end up watching his movies. You know, maybe you take a couple martial arts classes, maybe you take more than a couple, and you know, you read some books, and you know, you get your yin yang pendant and et cetera. And then, you know, maybe you kind of just grow out of it. It was a phase or whatever. But I think I've always had such a deep appreciation for, you know, some of the philosophy that he espoused. And certainly the way that he did it was so different from the way that I think Western ears had really heard it or received it before. And he was a fascinating individual, and certainly no saint, and certainly someone that had his own issues and his own ego to wrestle with at times. But such an interesting life, and what a wonderful you know, time capsule his story is in so many ways, and some of the things that he experienced. And here's an anecdote that was fascinating to me, not for any of the other reasons I'm talking about, but just because, again, it intersects with so many things that are at once horrifying and controversial and dark humor and, you know, and comical. And you know, you find yourself asking so many questions that come out of it. And I think that that's kind of exemplary of not only good writing, you know, the book is well written, but also just the way that history and these stories can affect us, and when we recontextualize them in new times. He was very good friends with Steve McQueen, and he was good friends with Roman Polanski, actually. And he was invited. He was also very good friends with Jay Sebring, who was a Hollywood hairdresser. And the name may be familiar to a lot of folks because he was also, of course, one of the victims of the Tate LaBianca murders that the Manson family perpetrated in '69. And he was actually invited to a party with all of them. Now, I don't think he was invited to the Polanski house the night of the murders, but Steve McQueen was. McQueen didn't end up showing up, but obviously the horrifying crime that was committed that night, you know, shook that community. And Bruce, you know, knew Sharon Tate. He'd worked with Sharon Tate, as, you know, kind of offering like fight advice and stuff on the Dean Martin movie that she did, you know, and obviously was good friends with Jay Sebring. Jay Sebring was honestly one of his earliest friends in Hollywood, because Sebring was interested in the martial arts and had seen Bruce Lee at the Long Beach karate tournament, and basically they traded. Bruce Lee gave Sebring martial arts lessons. Sebring gave Bruce Lee haircuts. And at the time that was a big deal, because Sebring was charging like $50, $60, $70 a haircut at a time when you could get a haircut for like $150. So, you know, he was, and he was considered like someone that could hook you up, right? Like you walked into Sebring's hair studio, you got your hair cut, and you walked out, you know, knowing that Steve McQueen was working on such and such project with such and such producer, and here's the phone number of an assistant, and call them, and maybe, you know, you can get a job or something like that. So anyway, you know, Lee knew these people, and after the murders, you know, Polanski was a wreck, and he launched his own private investigation to try to find the perpetrators. And one of the pieces of evidence at the crime scene were a pair of glasses, eyeglasses, and they could not trace who the eyeglasses belonged to. And Bruce and Polanski were working out at one point, and Bruce mentioned that he'd lost his eyeglasses, and Polanski, you know, his fervor was so great, he offered to buy Lee new glasses, took him to the optician to get this all taken care of, to find out what his prescription was, to see if they matched the eyeglasses that were found at the crime scene. They didn't. You know, Polanski's relieved. He buys his friend these glasses. And the interesting thing that kind of came out of this is that Polanski actually became closer to Bruce after this, and vice versa. But he never told Bruce that that's what happened. You know, that's why he bought him the glasses, that it wasn't just a token of friendship. It was also because he wanted to find out if Bruce had been in the house that night. And it's just such a, you know, as I'm reading the story, I'm like, my gosh, this is, I don't know how to take all of this in. And obviously, you know, Polanski is certainly a disturbing individual for many, many, many reasons, but there's clearly also this element that you cannot help but ignore about the horrific circumstances to which he loses his young wife and unborn child. And, you know, is obviously, I think the grief and the way that he channeled that grief, and then, you know, having a friend like Bruce Lee, and just, it's a really interesting little bit of story. And it, you know, takes up like basically half a page in the book, but it certainly stuck with me as being something that I was fascinated by. But you learn so much about Bruce that I didn't know before, including a lot about his childhood, a lot about the films that he made in Hong Kong before he moved to the United States. He was kind of something of sort of like a child star, maybe not quite at that level, but he was in quite a few movies in Hong Kong before he ever moved to the United States. You know, really technically maybe only a star in like 2 or 3 of them, but yeah, fascinating life. And I love also, one of the things I love about books like this is when they are able to contextualize certain events. So you learn a lot about kind of the history of Hong Kong, history of China, the history of some of these movie studios that he worked for, you know, not only the American studios, but the Hong Kong studios, the way filmmaking differed in Hong Kong compared to the United States, the way television production worked, a lot of the behind the scenes stuff about, you know, Green Hornet and Kung Fu, and unproduced stuff like Kelsey and the Silent Flute, which the stuff about the Silent Flute is fascinating. I knew a little bit about it, but when it actually gets into the nuts and bolts of it, you're just sort of like, wow, Bruce and James Coburn, like, were just throwing it all out there, to say the least. Some of the scene descriptions that they wrote, apparently, it's like, this movie was going to be X-rated, not just for violence. But anyway, it's been fun reading that, so I'll throw that out there. You know, I try to cover all my bases when it comes to pop culture, film, television, and Quantum Leap. Speaking of something that, sorry for the rustling in the background, that kind of fits under all those bills. I haven't even opened this yet. That kind of hits the television, pop culture, and Quantum Leap, perhaps tangentially, is the Sandman first season is now out on 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray. I'm very, very, very excited to throw this in and catch up on some of this and the special features, etc. Of course, there's our Mason right over there, as Desire. It's the what is it, 35th anniversary, I believe, the 35th anniversary of the first issue of Sandman recently. If you've not read the comic, I certainly encourage you to. I think that it's fantastic. It really is a masterpiece of storytelling. Yeah, I mean, Neil is fantastic. The show is great too. So I'm looking forward to you know, being able to throw that in on physical media, see if I can notice the difference, which, you know, probably not, but maybe, you know, let's be honest. It is better. It is definitely better. But anyway, Yeah, that's definitely all I got. I've run out of steam. I've almost run out of voice. I will just reiterate once again, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, stay safe out there, and remember to always, always, always leap responsibly.